Preparing live stream.
Okay. Share on my own timeline, me only. See, I'm not seeing that.
Preparing live stream.
Okay, there I'm
Okay.
seeing us. I'm
Share
seeing
on
us.
my own timeline, me only.
See, I'm not seeing that. Where is share?
Live
No.
stream.
Okay, there I'm
Okay.
seeing us. Share, no. Go live. You're not seeing it? Find in your Facebook profile, share it to group. Okay. I'm going to go to my Facebook profile. Okay, here we are. Got it. Okay. There's no way to share it. Where does it?
Are there three little buttons anywhere that you click?
Yeah, I'm clicking them and there's no, oh, here it is. Share. Share to. Share now. Are you seeing it?
Let me refresh. No, hang on. No, I'm not.
It's only sharing. There's no place to share it to a group. Share it to, wait a minute. No, public, done. Share now. Wait, there's no place anywhere where it says share to group or.
Lee, I think the rain has already happened in mid here near downtown. I think I hear it.
Okay, something has changed. Share now. I cannot find any button anywhere. Share this.
Okay,
Save.
something has changed. But I
They're
hear
supposed
the
to, I'm
echo.
supposed to be able to share it to group,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm found it in my Facebook profile. And there's no, but every time I click on the little three buttons, there's nothing that says share to group.
Can you share your screen?
Yeah, the other thing is when I went in, was there a place? Yeah, I'll share my screen. This sucks. Okay, you guys see this? This
Yeah.
is my profile. The video is live. There is nothing here that says share to group. There is nothing here. When I go here, it only goes to my feed. It
Yeah.
doesn't,
Go back to my feed. Does that pull down and give you an option?
nope. And then when I go to public, it's just,
Oh,
there's no sharing to, and then I try to do this or group. Wait a minute. There it is.
You got it. Yeah. Click on it.
yeah.
Okay. Jesus.
Post.
Okay.
Good job. Okay. Now let's
They
see.
don't make it easy. All
No.
right. We should be live and we're only 5 minutes late. Hello, everybody.
Hello?
Stop sharing your screen, Toby.
Okay. Thank you. Are we on? Are we in the Knox area gardening tips? Are we in the Facebook? Yes,
We
we.
are.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, welcome everybody. We had to dink around a little bit. For some reason, I was able to get us on smoothly last week, and this week, senior moment. I don't know. Anyway, So we are here for
It's a
Gardening Tips
Facebook
Live.
moment.
What?
It's a Facebook moment.
Is it Facebook? Oh, yeah. Well, Facebook can mess you up at any age. I should say that. There are so many bits and bobs. I'm telling you, and I run a tech company for a living, so I tell you right now, I'm pretty tech savvy, but Facebook, that's a total, whatever. Anyway. So, friends, welcome to Gardening Tips Live. This week, Amy is on vacation still. So, I'm here with my gardening Knox area, or I'm sorry, Knox County Master Gardeners, Margot Emery. You want to say hi, Margot?
Hey, everybody. Good morning.
And Lee Cheek, who is an intern in training.
Hi, this is Lee.
And,
Doing it.
good morning. So today we have a very special presentation. And, people join the Master Gardeners at any stage of their gardening journey. They can be complete beginners or they can have experience. Some people are super experienced. Lee actually has some experience that she offered to share with us around growing asparagus. And I don't know about you, but I've been thinking a lot. In our new place in Washington, I'm trying to figure out where I want my asparagus bed to be because it's just such a fascinating thing to grow. But there are some real things. It's not like every vegetable. So there's some real things you got to into keep in mind. One thing I also want to mention before we get started is there is still, I believe there are still seats in, there's a, uh, garden grow your green thumb basic principles of gardening class that's going to happen at the Burlington Branch Library. Uh, and it's free. It's on March 29th from 1:30 to 4. I don't know, Margot, it might be on our Master Gardeners page on the events calendar.
I will go look and post it if it is.
I think it's limited. They're going to provide light snacks and drinks. They're going to have a raffle at the end of the class, but seats are limited to the 25 first people. So if you're new to gardening or you need a refresher, this course would be really fun. It's an afternoon, so you can really learn a lot. And Kathy Carpenter, who's teaching it, knows a lot about gardening. I know her, and she's been a master gardener for a while now. Um, and so she's going to talk about troubleshooting, how to grow ornamentals or vegetables, and the basic principles for prepping your garden to plant and pamper your plants, and problems because sometimes things don't go the way we want. But now we know that because we talk about that all the time. So, Margot will try to find a link to that, but it's on March 29th, 1:30 to 4 at the Burlington Branch Library. So if you can check that out, that's great. But I think it's time to hand it over to Lee to talk about asparagus. What say you?
So we've our family has loved asparagus, and growing up, we lived in Kennewick, Washington. And when my mother was a teenager, she lived in Kennewick, Washington, and she actually worked in the fields before school, cutting
Ooh.
asparagus in the morning because that's the best time to actually to harvest your asparagus is in the morning. And she would pick asparagus, and they didn't have a lot of food back in the World War II era, and so she would eat raw asparagus as she was picking. And then I remember in the 60s I was growing up, and we were living in Kennewick, Washington, and asparagus grew wild out in the desert.
So
And
Kennewick, tell everybody where Kennewick is. I'm not sure everybody knows where that is.
it's in the south east corner of Washington State, right along the Columbia River.
Yeah.
And it has great soil uh, from before they built the dams. They had this, great river would overflow and create this great loamy soil.
Hmm.
And so there's a lot of crops that are grown there. in addition to asparagus. But asparagus is a perennial. And so it would grow wild out in the desert, and we would go pick asparagus. And I
Oh,
talked to my aunt yesterday, and she said they used to harvest big bundles of it and freeze it and put it in their freezer and have it all year long. Uh,
Mm.
but but it also grew wild with the tumbleweeds and the baby's breath. Um, but anyway, so in 2018, I planted a root ball, actually 3 crowns of asparagus. And when I started getting my crop in, I would always pick some for Mama, and she would love snacking on it, raw. I like it cooked too. But anyway, um, yeah, in the spring of 2018, I ordered Jersey Night giant asparagus, and they're 1-year-old crowns. And I picked a disease-free cultivar, so that was developed by Rutgers University.
That,
And one of the important things is to pick a location that where you're not going to move it because it's going to live between 15 and 20 years.
yeah.
Lee, question about cultivars. Are there a lot of different kinds of asparagus or are they only
There
a few?
are. There are
Okay.
lots of different types of asparagus. And
And
so
different colors.
and different colors. Yeah, there's purple and all kinds of things. And there's a nice link I'll eventually put in the comments that for local asparagus, but a lot of them are from Rutgers that are these resistant, and they all start with Jersey because that's where Rutgers is. It's in New Jersey.
Nice.
Yeah, yeah. So anyway, yeah. Yeah. So there is Jersey Gem, Jersey Knight, Jersey King, Jersey Giant, Jersey Supreme. Purple Passion is another hybrid line. And these are all good disease resistant ones. But an older cultivar that a lot of people use in this area is Mary Washington.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I agree with that.
Do you? But an older cultivar that a lot of people use in this area. Yeah. So anyway, so I've not had any disease problems, but there are a whole list of hosts that I will get to. But the first thing, if you're going to grow asparagus, is to do the soil test. And so that's actually what I did was let me go ahead and share my screen. And I got the results back yesterday from my soil test, just because you want to see how things are going and see, if you're keeping your plants healthy. Now my plants is 8 years old. But I want to keep it healthy, and so it'll continue to do what it needs to do. And one of the most important things is the soil pH is extremely important. Now it's at 7.06. Now, the desired range is they said for Tennessee's, it's between 6.5 to 7.5. But I went to a lecture this week, and North Carolina says between 6.5 and 8. And Marsha Lehman said 8 is ideal. And so, I may want to do just a little bit of amending this fall after my production to consider that, increase that. And so, they've done some recommendations for me, and I chose for this soil sample both to look at just asparagus and then regular garden crop. And so their recommendation was to broadcast before planting and annually after harvest zero 0.4 pounds of 33-0-0 or similar nitrogen source. And because I want to do organic, I'm probably going to do then blood meal. And for my 4x8 bed, I'm probably going to do a fourth of a pound of blood meal in there around the crowns when I'm finished that. And so this is UT Gardens last week. And you can see right here along the edge, the left-hand edge, there is a spear coming up. And this is their bed. And this week they added some good mulch to this to help the asparagus as it's coming up. And there you can see the little bitty asparagus right there in the middle, just starting to come up. And then there were, two nice spears coming up. And this, the one in the middle, that's a taller one, is ready to snap off and eat. And then there are two smaller ones along the right-hand side, and then there's one nice tall one to the left. And then this is my garden bed, and this week my asparagus started coming up, and I actually have some that I harvested this morning. And that's my whole bed where you can see that the various crowns. I took this picture yesterday morning, and then I took a picture of what it looks like. I found a picture of what it looks like after it's gone to seed. It raises really, really high. And then this is what it looks like. I took a picture of it before I cut it back, of once it's dead. It's gotten all the carbon that it needed out of the air, and then it looks like a nice brown mess. And then this is what I picked this morning. Now, the spear on the very right, you can see it has a little itty bitty um, little branches that are coming out. And those branches will then eventually, what they will do is they'll create leaves, and it's very, very ferny, and it's kind of pretty, but it gets to be over 5 feet tall. It's taller than me. Yeah, yeah. So I'm gonna stop the share. And so let's talk about then. Okay, so I did my soil test. Yay! And I'm in a good spot. And amendment. So your asparagus starts growing. It starts coming up about this time of year, mid-March.
Hey,
Um,
Lee,
huh?
Lee, when you pick your spot, are you looking for a spot that's dry, wet, all full sun, part shade? When
Full
you
sun.
pick your full sun and you
Mhm.
want it to drain well, it seems like
Yes.
asparagus doesn't want to have wet feet.
It doesn't like clay. And so that's why you really need it in a raised bed.
Okay.
And actually the recommendation is that you dig down before you do your raised bed, and you make a big, huge trench
Okay.
to put your and then amend your soil and put in good soil, good,
Mhm.
nice draining soil,
Okay.
because it doesn't like wet feet.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
So,
Lee,
yeah.
when you did your soil test, were you doing that in the fall and did you amend something over the winter?
Well, I was lucky. So before I started studying for a master gardener, I just did it. Actually, I had lots of fails. Um, and um, uh, um, it was a bed that I had set up for blueberries, which like a
Yeah.
totally different pH, but they hated the spot and they died. So I decided to do asparagus instead. And so I was lucky rather than good. But if you're being good, I would set it up and amend it actually a year ahead of time. So
Okay.
I would set it up now to plant it a year from now. Now
Do you
you
plant
can
like
do seeds, but seeds take a long time
okay.
and are not necessarily very good. That's why I chose the 1 year old crown, because everything I got at the big box stores wouldn't grow.
Yeah. I do you when do you plant crowns? Is it this time of year?
Hmm. Yep, yep, yep. And they came to me in cuts of what they did was they took newspaper and did big long strips of it, and they wet it, and they sent me these crowns wrapped in these wet newspaper.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Hey Brian.
Hi, Brian. You're on mute. Hmm.
Lise.
I
Yeah, there
was
you go.
because I didn't want to scramble and stutter and everything. That's why I put me back on mute right there. I just got here a minute ago. I'm at the Dixie Lee Farmers Market, indoor farmers market.
Nice.
Awesome. Lise giving us a talk on asparagus growing.
Yeah. So yeah,
Oh,
we were just talking about my soil, and that how you really have to, you know, get a good soil test and do some good amendments before you ever plant asparagus. I
Cool.
yes.
I was lucky rather than good in my first try. Yeah.
Aren't we all?
Yeah.
Aren't we all?
And Lee, you've already talked about planting where the asparagus can stay, that you're not going to have to move them
Right.
because they're
For
going
20
to
years.
produce. Yeah.
I don't like being moved. Yeah.
That you also can use them for ornamental purposes. Their fern-like leaves are beautiful. And if you've got an ugly site, like you're looking at your neighbor's heat pump,
Hmm.
you can use them as a screen, which is nice.
Yes, you can.
Yeah.
This is true. They are
How,
beautiful. Good idea.
how long does a bed last?
20 years.
Wow. Okay, so this
Yeah.
is a commitment. I
It
mean,
is.
it doesn't have to be, you can dig them up, obviously.
Yes.
But and if you take care of them well, will they produce the same?
Yeah.
They don't reduce production over time?
Right.
Wow, that's awesome.
It is. It is. It is pretty good. But you got to take care of it, and every year you've got to feed it.
Okay.
It's a heavy feeder.
What do you feed yours with, Lee?
Um, well, what I do is I mulch. I collect leaves from all over the neighborhood and I mulch them up. And I do about a 6 inches of mulch leaves over the top of mine. Now, this year I'm planning on using blood meal to add to that. That was the recommendation of one of my master gardener friends, Marsha.
And when so you mulch over the winter 6 inches
Yeah,
over the winter to protect the crown so they don't
yeah,
freeze and die.
yeah.
And then when do you do the blood meal? In the early spring?
You can do it. You can do it in the spring, but you can also do it in the fall
Okay.
to help them to get all the strength
Mhm.
that they need to produce good stuff. And I get a nice crop. In the beginning, it's 1 or 2 spears. So, for example, I cut this morning.
I forgot to move my vehicle.
Uh-huh.
Okay, I'll
Yeah,
mute him.
yeah.
There we go.
There you go.
And I had asparagus once in my life, and I've written about how to grow asparagus. I know one critical function when you're trying to grow it and maintain it is to keep it weeded because asparagus can't outcompete weeds. Is
Right.
that your understanding too?
Yeah. But I do grow along the edges of that bed, for example, strawberries, you
Oh.
know. And companion planting is fairly important. There are plants that that you that actually help asparagus. So, for example, after you've done, so when you're doing your harvest of asparagus, so the first year you're letting it go to seed. You're not doing anything with it. Second year, you're lightly harvesting it, and then you let it go to seed and sprout up. And then in the third year, you harvest for about a month. And then in the fourth year and beyond, you've got 6 to 8 weeks that you're harvesting it before you then let it go all up and huge. And so they are, that's good. After it's gone up, you can put a lot of things along the edges. So I've always had strawberries growing along my edges. Now, it's not necessarily a great companion plant. Now, for the research, they talk about flowers in the aster family. Dill, coriander, carrots, tomatoes, parsley, basil, comfrey, nasturtiums, marigolds. But there are some plants you should avoid. So, for example, onions and garlics and potatoes. Those are not good to go with asparagus because they will compete too much. And the enzymes that they like and produce are not good for asparagus. So at the end of, usually at the end of my beds, I always grow garlic because it helps protect from a lot of pests. But as my companion plant, as my asparagus starts to grow towards the end, I'm going to have to dig all that garlic up because it doesn't like it. And
Mm.
actually, it's interesting that root ball that's at that end isn't as happy as the ones at the other end.
Interesting.
Yeah. So I'm gonna have to dig up that garlic.
Hmm.
Yeah.
So you've learned.
Yeah, I've
You've
learned.
been schooled.
I've been schooled. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And but I also grow a lot of parsley and comfrey. And so I'm thinking about adding that to that asparagus bed.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it seems like flowers, it especially I could see, if you put, bright flowers around the outside and you have these, asparagus that goes to seed, these ferns, it would be really pretty.
Gorgeous. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I planted some Mexican sunflowers
Mm,
that have grown in there and some zinnias.
mm.
And
So,
they make a pretty combination. Yes.
yeah. The textures too, different textures.
Uh-huh.
Does this, so I didn't realize this. So for the first, so you really have to be, patient. This is a patient plant.
Yes, it is.
This is we're going to wait 3 years and then we're going to start. In the fourth year, we're going to start really harvesting. Or in the third year, you can
Yeah.
harvest for a month.
Yeah.
Second year, just a few light tastes.
Yeah.
First year, nothing, just let it go.
Yeah.
Uh, what about the water requirements of asparagus? Is it like every other, an inch or two a week, or
Yeah.
does it like dry or
So I give it an inch a week.
okay,
If I haven't gotten rain. So
okay,
it's raining today. I'm not going to water it, and I haven't watered it all winter uh,
okay,
because there's been enough,
okay.
and it's been dormant. But now
How
that it's starting to feed, it needs all its energy.
right? Once it's sort of when's the full on flush of what time period? You said it's like 6 to 8 weeks you can
Right.
really harvest. What time period is that when it gets to the full flush where you're harvesting all the time?
So that's going to be in 2 weeks.
Okay, so
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
April, May.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And how often are you going out there and cutting
Every
stuff
day.
every day? Otherwise, you'll start getting those like little branches going and it won't be as tender.
Right. So if you want to get enough to eat for a meal, so I cut this morning, but I'm going to add to it. I'm going to keep this in the refrigerator, and I'm going to add to it till I have enough to eat for a nice side. Yeah.
And I see you have it in water.
Yes, 2 inches of water. Yeah. Hmm.
Okay. Okay. Interesting.
Yeah.
So when it's in full flush, like let's say a couple weeks from now, how many spears are you harvesting a day?
Okay. So I've got. I started off with 3 crowns, but now I have 5.
Okay.
So that I've done. So I'm getting 2 to 3 spears a day per crown.
Okay.
And so, this is just the very, very beginning. But
Okay.
yeah, you have to go out there every day and look to see, hey, is it taller than my hand? That's 6 inches.
Okay.
And then you snap it off. And I like, they say just to snap it off. But a lot of times I'll take a clean pair of scissors out with me and snip it.
Yeah.
Um, uh, but the big thing is you let it to get taller than a foot, it no longer snaps at the bottom.
Mm.
It gets kind of a little bit woody.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you've ever bought asparagus from the store. There's a
Yes.
sort of a woody spot to it. And so if you take it and you snap it in the middle, it naturally snaps to where it's all good and tasty as opposed to that woody taste.
Yeah.
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 Interesting. So 5 crowns would feed a family of 2 for a couple months every day. So you gotta love your asparagus, or
You
you
gotta
can
love
freeze
your
it.
asparagus. Yes, you do.
But you can freeze it too. Do you just put it in the freezer, like put it in a Ziploc or put it in and not parboil it, not do anything, just put it in the freezer
Just put it
and
in the freezer. Yeah.
And
yeah,
share with friends.
And share with friends. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I love asparagus just roasted with a little olive
A little
oil and salt,
olive
pepper,
oil, a
and
little bit of
it's
garlic.
like 12 minutes and you have, or 10 minutes and you've got like, and it is the best way because it keeps all of its like flavor and it stays kind of crisp.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
does. Yeah, I a lot of times I've got a nice rectangular a clear Pyrex pan that has a nice lid. And what I do, and it's about 6 inches long, and so it snaps off nicely. Sometimes I snap off little pieces in there, and I put it in that pan. And I've rinsed it off when I put it in, so that's enough moisture. I add a little garlic and a little butter,
Mm.
and I cook it for about 2 to 3 minutes in the microwave.
Oh,
And
nice.
it comes out and it's still a little crisp. I toss it around in that butter and with the garlic, and it's with some nice salmon, it's a perfect meal. It does
Oh, yeah.
great. My blood sugar loves it. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. That's a typical, that is so Pacific Northwest.
it is.
Salmon and asparagus.
You got it. Yeah, yeah.
What
That is
what can go wrong with asparagus?
okay. Pests. So there are our common diseases are asparagus beetles, rust, uh, fusarium, all of those things. And one of the things that is most important is your disease resistant variety.
So there's really no,
And yes, yeah,
what,
and getting well drained soil. Yes,
okay.
yeah,
Okay. So those are your two. Other than that, once a pest
mm,
or a disease hits a plant,
yeah.
should you pull it out ASAP so it doesn't infect the other plants, or is it pretty much you've lost your whole bed?
You've lost it. Yeah.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
you're saying it's not common if you get disease and you've got good well-drained soil, you're pretty much
Exactly.
set.
Yeah. Yeah. So now I had no luck buying, the little starts from the big box stores.
Okay.
I had no luck at all. I tried for years and years and years to grow that, and I never had any luck until I got my year-old crown from a legitimate nursery. Yeah,
Yeah. Okay.
And you can even get 2-year or 3-year crowns, I think.
you can. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But how far apart do you plant them?
So they said 12 inches apart.
Okay. And do they multiply?
Yes.
So they start to get bigger and bigger. So 5 crowns in a 4x8 box would take over the box.
Yes.
By the end,
Got it.
it's like you got it everywhere.
Yeah.
Got it. I would say if you're gonna plant in a box, just make sure you can get into that box and not step on it things to harvest, right?
Yes. Right.
For me, like a 4 foot wide, because I have 4x8 boxes,
Yeah.
it's hard for me to get in the middle because I'm short. For
Yeah.
me to get in the very middle of that box, I'm
Mhm.
barely stretching. So I would, if you're thinking about setting up a space to do asparagus, I would say just make sure you can reach all the way and snip
Yeah.
because you don't want to stand anywhere because if it doesn't like clay soil, if you
Yeah.
compact that at
Yeah.
all, it's gonna
I'll be
plus you're gonna
happy.
probably step on some starts, because as it grows and fills out the box,
Uh-huh. Yeah.
so that's one thing I would consider thinking
Yeah.
myself on this.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. So yeah, it's good. So, I'm gonna do a fourth of a pound of blood meal, this coming up fall when
Yeah,
or after every I've stopped harvesting. Yeah.
yeah, and
Mhm.
then let it sit and
Mhm.
percolate.
Yeah, and give good stuff to it. Yeah.
What other things should people know about asparagus?
Um, Good question.
They're nutritious.
Oh, vitamin A and vitamin C. Yes, they are very nutrition. They're low in carbs. They're a
Yeah,
great complex carbohydrate.
yeah,
Um, yes.
yeah, awesome.
But not everybody loves them.
Yeah,
I find that my Italian neighbors when I was growing up just adored them
right,
because it was originally it's not a native. It's
right,
originally from Italy.
yeah,
Um, and one of the things I've seen is the seeds coming off of it. Because there's a male and a female
mm,
plant. And I've got one female and she is produces all these little ball seeds and they're beautiful on this fern. They're gorgeous. And uh Versus the males, they produce more um spears,
mhm.
interestingly enough.
So do you have to have at least two then, a male and a female?
No.
You
Mm-mm.
don't. Okay.
No.
And you don't choose, you just get what you get.
I
It's
just
sort of like when you're getting chicks.
yeah.
You think you're getting females, and all of a sudden, little
It's a
rooster shows
rooster.
up. Uh, so you just get, and some of them will be male randomly, some will be female, and so do you recommend people stick to one cultivar for their whole bed, or can they mix it up? Does it matter?
I'm chosen so I know what's going on. I've
Okay.
chosen one cultivar.
Okay.
I also chose the cultivar that I could get.
Mm-hmm. Right.
That, when I did my research about disease resistance.
Right. You want to make
That,
sure.
yeah, yeah.
What are they expensive? The crowns?
Oh, good question. I looked back at the invoice. This was, I bought it in 2018.
So it's been a while.
And yeah, it's been a while. Yeah, I think they were over $10 a crown.
Okay.
Yeah,
But a good investment. I
it
mean,
was.
asparagus is expensive to begin with
Yeah,
when you get at the grocery.
yeah.
And then you've got like 20 years of production.
Mm-hmm.
It feels like it's pretty no muss, no fuss as long as you have the
Set
established,
it up.
the
Yeah.
box and the depth and the loamy soil
Mm-hmm.
and you're watering and mulching and making sure that and you've done a soil test, making sure you've got the pH level where it needs to be. It seems like it's pretty no muss, no fuss.
It is. Yeah,
Wow.
it's been very happy. And I'm not, I'm going out every day, but
Right.
I get to eat stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
Lee, is it important to plant out of an area that gets strong winds, or do you have to stake your asparagus ever?
No. Mm-mm. No. It doesn't seem to care.
Nice.
Yeah. And that's the amazing thing was in Washington State. Our desert area was called the Horse Heaven Hills. You would go out there and it would be just growing wild in the desert.
Mm,
But then it had fabulous soil
right.
from the Columbia River overflows you know, and it really didn't get that much rain.
Yeah.
And and so it was, growing wild, it was happy.
Mm-hmm.
And I've seen it growing wild in Montana.
Hmm.
Yeah, I had some friends that had some across the street growing wild in a pasture.
So
And
it being a non-native plant, it's naturalized and
yes,
naturalized in areas where people might not have been growing it in the
yeah,
desert.
yeah, exactly. No, yeah, well, they had it on farms, and
Right.
then it managed to seed in the desert. And then almost everybody I knew that loved asparagus would go out to the desert and cut like my aunt. She would get a couple bushels full of asparagus that she would cut and put it in the freezer. Yeah.
Wow. Wow. Fun.
Yeah.
Anything else people need to know about asparagus? Margot, you want to add anything? Because I know you've
I, I think we've covered everything. I would say just for giggles, if you're at Lowe's or somewhere and they've got a pack of asparagus seeds, pick it up and look at the back and look at days to maturity. I don't remember, but it was in the hundreds.
no wonder it doesn't.
Yeah. And you can't really, harvest it that first year. Yeah.
I
If
know
it didn't grow. Yeah.
Miss Amy has been a proponent of growing it from seed, but I don't remember her reasoning. And when I grew it before, I got crowns.
Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes it just,
Mhm.
yeah. So great. Anything else, Lee, we should know about asparagus that you want to share?
Mm.
This has been great.
Pick a spot.
Yeah, I am excited because I thought it always seemed to be really mysterious. It's sort of like growing garlic. Garlic always felt really like exotic and mysterious. And then when I started growing garlic, I was like, what? This is so easy. It's like my easiest plant. Garlic, it's so easy. I've got garlic and shallots going right now. They're already like this tall. The things are coming up. They've been zapped by frost. They don't care. They're just growing as long as you mulch them, you know. So I'm excited. The other thing we wanted to talk about, so Lee, thank you so much for sharing all of that. It's great. And Margot, thanks for chiming in. We were going to talk a little bit about weather too, because we're getting, this is the time of year where we get lulled into a false sense of security because it starts getting balmy out. We're like, all right, let's plug stuff in. You know, and if you go to the big box, there's gonna be, or the gardens, there's gonna be plants out there, and they're gonna be calling you. So I thought we could all, as a group, share any advice we want to share about how to manage this chaotic spring weather that gets our hopes up and wants us to get out there. Now, there are plenty of things you could be doing right now, like preparing beds, things like that. But Brian, you're joining us today. How about any advice from you? Let's start with you. In the springtime,
Uh,
what's your best advice for managing the weather as a gardener who has been sitting and waiting and waiting and waiting?
And knowing
oh,
about
weather.
what the weather might do, Brian.
The weather might do anything. Just like I've got lightning outside here at the Dig City Farmers Market. So it's the storm system is already rolled in. Whether it's going to get harder or worse, most of the National Weather Service warnings or alerts have been about the wind factor. We're talking about in the upper elevations of Cumberland Plateau and foothills and Smokies and stuff. We're talking about between 40 to 90-mile-an-hour winds. We're getting a little bit down here, but I haven't seen much driving over here. But that was their main concern, as opposed to flooding. They do indicate that we have potential chances of flooding, but the the National Weather Service biggest concern again was the wind factor. So I put all my stuff that potentially could blow down is secured.
Right. And any plants, like if you've planted fruit trees or small trees, they should be staked at least to bend a little bit, not.
Right, exactly. That's extremely important right there. Allowed to bend a little bit because that develops a better trunk as
Mhm,
opposed to some people might think weakens it.
mhm.
But the trunk is able to flex, or the tree is able to flex right there. It winds up much stronger.
Yeah.
But the funny thing is, one thing I've been pushing, goodness sakes, as much as I have promoted, pushed our home and fruit and vegetable gardening calendar, I still get people say, when should we start gardening? Or when should we start carrots or onions or asparagus? I've had people asking about that. And I have done vegetable gardening before, so I'm not afraid to at least listen in to a question right there to see if I can help or give a reference. But I just don't consider myself a vegetable gardener. But I tell people, goodness sakes, this is a free download, the calendar. And apart from what the weather feels like at the moment, we need to remember. I think somebody reported, I don't know if Miss Amy or someone else, the week before our last average frost date, we had 14 inches of snow.
Yeah. And
That's
our
what
So
I
for
was
average,
any,
getting at.
our
yeah,
average frost date is April 14th,
22nd,
22nd. It's changed. Some people say the 14th, some people say the 22nd.
yeah.
So
Uh,
that
uh,
doesn't mean also on the 22nd, that's not 100%. That's like is that a 50% chance of frost, 50% chance of not frost on the 22nd?
We had a freeze on the 28th of April here a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
And
I,
March roars in like a lion, leaves like a lamb, but it might get to lamb on the very last day, if that. We can still have a big winter event,
yep.
and
Mhm.
you know, let's pray for our plants that that doesn't happen, but it's not impossible that it might.
But that
Right.
average last frost date, and I think it's 50-50. any
Right.
seed packet that anything you're going to grow from seed, the seed packet, or looking up online for that cultivar, if it's a vegetable you're growing or flowers from seed, whatever you're growing, if you're growing it from seed, read the seed packet. The seed packet will tell you a few things. One is whether or not it should be started indoors, recommended, or it can go start straight in the soil. The second thing it will tell you is when to start it from backing up from average frost date or at average frost date. So they're different, as we know, like we have our cool season vegetables. But we talked last week about seed starting your warm season vegetables. A lot of these are started indoors X number of days or weeks prior to that frost date. So, if somebody goes to Brian and says, when should I put this in? Well, it depends. What are you putting in, right? Are you starting from seed? Are you starting from a plant? You know, and if you're starting a plant, like you've bought a tomato plant, what's important is not the frost date so much as the frost date is important, but also the soil temperature.
Yes.
So especially like peppers and tomatoes, if you put them in and the soil is too, no matter how
Cold.
mature that plant is, if the soil is too cold, that plant will suffer and maybe die.
That's what happened to me. I was
Mhm.
stunted.
You're planted in cold soil.
I feel like it's some my fingernails are always dirty. So yeah, I think I was.
What, Margot, anything else about this spring weather that you recommend that people think about?
I think most of our listeners and viewers have heard us preach about don't plant basil, don't plant peppers, wait for the warm season. I've got some neighbors who are just very novice gardeners, and she was showing me yesterday that she's growing blueberries in a planter that's this wide, and she's been growing them for 2 years now, and they've not produced. And I said, they're bushes. They can get the size of small trees. They need space. Put them in the ground. And my tip to her, and I know she's not going to do it, is whenever you're thinking about planting something, research it online. And if you're at the garden center, look up that cultivar name on your phone before you buy it to see what it says in terms of space that it needs and how you grow it. Um, you know, we
Yeah.
all know novice gardeners in our lives, and they need this advice. But
And to
yeah.
your search, you want to add edu and extension so that you're getting good information.
For sure.
Oh, when you're on your Google search.
And
Brian,
one thing I do
oh,
say is
go ahead, Margot. Brian's got something to say after you.
keep your ground covered, your soil covered. Plant what you're going to plant, but put straw around it or some other wood chips, something like that, because weed seeds like to blow in the wind, and you're just heading off the need to weed. If you keep the soil covered, it also keeps moisture in the ground.
That's a good point. Brian.
Something else I would want to say in the defense of all these other people we're talking about. Um, um, Springtime or what it feels like, we're starting to warm up, and we get excited, get outside and start playing in the soil. But there's a more serious aspect to starting early, and that's we have such a short springtime where we go from winter-like conditions right here to summer in such a short time. So we have a small window to get all this stuff done, which that's what the calendars is supposed to help us with. But but people, unless they do this on a very serious commercial basis right here, we got family, we got work, we got all this other stuff. And it's not like we have this on a calendar. Okay, drop everything, go do this right here in preparation to start the seeds, and get our plants ready because they got to get out almost on a threatening level, weather-wise and stuff, but to get them in there so we can have a fair chance of good production. So I understand them to a certain extent.
Yeah. And, prepping your soil now, getting your beds ready, weeding if there's weeds out there. You want to, if it's dry, that's the best time. If you're going to prep your soil when it's dry, or you're going to put some amendment in or anything, when it's dry is good because you're not going to clump it. If it's wet, if you dig into that, it's going to clump. No need to till. That's another thing I would recommend. People think they need to till, but we're finding that the research is saying tilling disrupts the mycorrhiza, which is fungal in the ground, and it's not good for our plants. So you don't have to like till and have this like really fine soil. The other thing is that fine soil likes to like clamp down once the rain starts. So we often think we have to have these perfect beds too that have this like perfect tilled soil. No, that's not what we need at all. But we do need to get rid of our weeds. And like Margot said, mulching and keeping, you can put, some people will put black plastic over
Yeah.
a bed where they're going to put tomatoes and peppers, and that will heat up. Of course, you're not going to, well, some people will leave it on and then put the peppers and the tomatoes, but then you have to have irrigation underneath. But just to get it out there to warm up your soil, that's a way to do it as well. And then you take it off and you put your plants in. But you have to make sure that you're not getting into colder weather later on, because then that's just going to defeat the purpose. So you can buy plants and put them under lights if you're going to buy, we used to buy, and still do, sometimes we'll get from Costco, we'll get these giant tomato plants because we want to have fruit earlier, right? And there's no way we're going to grow these plants in starts that get this big. And so I learned, because the first time I did that, I made the mistake of putting it in my garden too early, and that thing was wilty and just. So now I keep them in my garage because they'll start selling these things early, and then you're worried they're going to sell out. So I put them in my garage, put them under a grow light, make sure I'm watering them, keep them warm and toasty. But then you do have to harden them off. You can't take them. If you've been nurturing those plants in your garage for a little while or your greenhouse and you want to put them out, you're going to have to harden them off. So you're going to have to put them out for a little while, take them back in, add an hour or two, and don't put them in direct sun because they'll fry because they're not used to that. So you can, if you get really excited about a plant and you're worried you're not going to be able to get it later, you can buy it, but you're going to have to keep it indoors for a little while. So that's another piece of advice. Lee, any pieces of advice you have for this springtime weather?
Of course, you can do cool season vegetables
Mm-hmm.
like, for example, kale
Yeah.
and collards and broccoli
Yes.
and lettuce. And one of the things I have is a cold frame. Now,
Season
or
extender.
season extender, yes, yes. But what I chose was, I didn't ask it to make it out of wood and glass. Instead, what I bought was a clear plastic tub that I put upside down on top of a little section where I'd planted my seeds in the soil. Yeah.
Smart.
Yeah. And then what I do is when it's a nice day, I take it off
Right. Right.
and then I put it back on again,
Yeah.
especially on those cold nights.
Yeah.
Like we got 37 degrees coming up here
Yep.
in a
Yep.
couple of days. Yeah. So right now it's uncovered. I'm going to let it get the rain, and stuff along that lines because I've got all my seedlings are coming up and they're happy. Radish is also in that group.
Yeah. Radishes are great. You could do mosh,
Yeah,
corn
I
salad
did.
you could do
I
right
did
now.
parsley. Yeah,
I think it's a little late for spinach. Spinach likes it really, really cold.
it does. Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
but
I
I
haven't had great
also,
luck with spinach.
yeah, I also have, 2-year-old kale
Hmm.
that
Right.
has been growing since I planted it several years ago,
Yeah.
and I just cut it back and let it flourish again.
Nice. Cut and come again. Well, it is 10 o'clock, gang. Want to thank everybody for being here. Thank you for everybody, Brian, Lee, Margot. Thank you for all of you who watched live or are watching the replay. We'll be back next week. I won't be here next week, but Amy will be back next week. And we're going to keep coming every week, same time, same place at 9 a.m. every Saturday morning through the growing season. So come back and join us. And we'll see you later.
Happy gardening, everybody.
Happy
Happy
gardening.
gardening.